Alright, spoilers for School Life. Last chance for no spoilers. This series is best viewed when not knowing what will happen. You've been warned. Kurumi is such a fun character. She stands out in a lot of ways, and she's pretty unique in terms of character development. I can't tell if she either didn't learn the main lesson, totally ignored it, or knew it before the series even started. I'll definitely be diving into that. She's the resident zombie exterminator, and she's awesome. Similar to Yuki, she has a really big heart, and out of the whole cast, she's the most morally focused. She has plenty of issues, but she never, or at least tries to never, let that get in the way of her being the best person that she can be. I'll start with pre-outbreak Kurumi, how the events of the first day of the outbreak changed her character, how she has a heroic heart, how her self-esteem issues got in the way of her life, and how she bounces back from heartbreak and hardship. Truly inspiring, so let's get into it. We only know a handful of details that happened in Kurumi's life before the outbreak, and they paint a pretty interesting picture. Kurumi was on the track team, and it's implied that she only joined so that she could be near her crush. We can also tell by her delivery of that information that it's something that bothers her. Knowing who she is as a character, I'm going forward with the assumption that she feels that it was a moral failure, and that's why it bothers her. There are also indications in the delivery and the phrasing that make me assume the same thing. The reason why this is important is because she chooses to make those choices, despite them being less than morally perfect in her own mind. This shows just how important this crush was to her. She actively went out of her way to participate in a club, only for the sake of a romantic interest in one of the members, and she feels bad for that. Assuming the earliest this began was her first year of high school, which is 3 years in Japan, she did that for at least 2 years, since last year was interrupted before graduation. I also found a specific story to be interesting, because it's never shown and only comes up once or twice. The story goes that there was someone running on the track when the outbreak hit. Kurumi says this when the others are observing zombies' behavior on the field. I think she was referring to herself. I think that after Misakura gave her a pep talk to confess her feelings to her crush, that she planned to do so after the race. If that's the case, then it speaks to a double tragedy. The first is that she likely didn't get a chance to confess. And since we never see it, I assume that she didn't. There is one clip that shows that might not be the case. I think it did show that she did confess, but we never really get to see whether or not that was the case, and it doesn't really align with the story about her being on the track, so I'm not completely assured on that notion. The second tragedy is that she brought a lot of people's attention to that field, and if that were the case, then an outbreak from the school, which is behind them, might have gotten many of those people caught off guard, including the crush that she was watching. It would also explain why she didn't get bit even when another runner did. She had a head start and only went back to retrieve him. It also means that instead of running away from the school, she chose to run towards it, likely trying to find help, but be chased to the roof instead. If that word of events played out, then that would be extremely sad. It would mean that Kurumi chose not to run from the school, the origins of the outbreak, when she had the chance. At that moment, the only place with zombies was the school. I have a feeling a lot of people were able to escape the outbreak because of that. The reason why I believe that to be the case is because there aren't that many bodies, and only a fraction of the total population can be seen as zombies. When characters say it's not likely that they are the only people left on Earth, it makes sense because Japan is an island country, and unless the zombies can swim, the infection was likely limited. That means Kurumi unknowingly stranded herself in one of the only zombie-populated places in the world, if not the only. She did it to save her crush, and she cared deeply about him, and still didn't get to live her life with him. There was a game played near halfway to the end of the series, and Kurumi was the only one who gave a proper answer in every sense. The game was how you would have wanted to live your life if the outbreak didn't happen. Kurumi mentioned that she would want to work, but more importantly get married. This stings when you remember the only person she ever showed romantic interest in is dead. When Yuki said that she would be Mrs. Shovel, that was morbid AF, but I still found it funny. Yuki basically said that Kurumi was going to be married to the thing that she killed her crush with. Ouch. It also speaks to how she was able to move forward, which I won't go over too much yet. She was able to keep the past in the past and didn't let it leak into the present. All the other characters struggle with this. Miki couldn't make a choice because her current circumstances got in the way of her decision. Rie was upset about Yuki, and so she didn't feel like lying to her more about the fake future, which was kind of what the game was in a sense. And Yuki couldn't participate in the same way because she wasn't aware of the game's true nature. Kurumi was the only character with the clarity to answer that question, and I found that to be intriguing. I mentioned in the intro that I'm not sure if she learned the main lesson of the series before it started or not at all, and this moment is a pretty good one to make an assumption. The theme is simple. In order to live life, you must be able to accept hard truths, and you must be able to find happiness. If you don't accept hard truths, then you will not be able to live, because you will live your life unaware, and that could kill you. If you don't find joy in life, then you fall into despair, and that can kill you too. That's basically it, but Kurumi is the outlier. Kurumi does accept hard truths throughout the series. She accepts that she has the deadly flaws, and tries to deal with them, to mixed results, but still. She also finds joy in her life. Besides Yuki, she is the most happy-looking one in the cast. She doesn't struggle with despair, even in dire moments. She also doesn't fall into ignorance. I think with all that being said, she clearly understood the theme from before this series started. It's weird to have to come to that conclusion because she isn't really included in the theme, which is why it took some more thinking to figure out. I think that speaks to her as a character. She's so independent that she doesn't have to be carried into the goal in a narrative sense, but she still goes through struggles, you know? Speaking of struggles, the event that we first see of her backstory is intense. If they were all real people, I would feel the most bad for Kurumi and her backstory. She had to kill someone she deeply cared about first day. She didn't even really know what was going on back then, and she had to make the choice to save her own life. Let's run it back a bit. She was running on the field, then the outbreak. She managed to carry her crush all the way there, then he turned. Whoa, that's a lot of heavy stuff all at once. Alright. That would traumatize anyone, and Kurumi was almost different, but it still got her. This moment was what cemented her fate in the second to last episode, and was the sole reason behind why she got bit. We see in episode 2 that she struggles with killing zombies when she's reminded that they're human. Her crush being one of the first people, if not the first, that she saw turn definitely contributed to that. She cared deeply about him, and that kind of infatuation can be extremely strong. It means that everything they say or do looks awesome to you, and it's not really something a lot of people can help. From my experience, the best thing to do is to get to know them as much as possible. When you understand someone as a person, it can be easier to deal with those rose-tinted glasses, but heads up, you can also just convince yourself they're awesome by ignoring red flags. My point saying that stuff being is to express how much pain this would cause a person. Kurumi was so passionate about the guy that she was willing to build up the courage and then confess her feelings. It's really hard to do that, and it can be scary. Her feelings were crazy strong. And then he turned into a zombie right in front of her. At that moment, Miss Sakura told her to run. If you've ever heard of flight, fight, or freeze, you know that she was being told to do the second one, but no one gets to tell Kurumi's brain how to react to danger because she goes for option 1 instead. When she does this, it's from a very deep place. No one really knows what their response to a situation like that will be until it happens, and I think that's part of why it came to define her afterwards. She is the most athletic of the group and has already shown she can handle it, but she still took up the mantle of zombie killer pretty fast. It seems like from that moment forward, she just had that job. That could also speak to the fact that the whole group likely didn't argue or even question her being the resident zombie taking care of her, because she naturally fit that role. Even if she fit the role like a semicircle into the square hole, it doesn't change the fact that she was still deeply bothered by what happened on that roof. I think she also learned a lesson about waiting too long to do something. She states to Miki that it's hard to know when to leap or when to look, but there are times when you need to leap for sure. She also stated that Yuki became her compass for that sort of thing because it seems like she always knows when. I think her speaking to the fact that she can't tell when to leap is in regards to her crush. She was going to confess that day, but she lost her chance forever because the local zombie apocalypse started. She waited at least 2 years to confess, but she didn't until that day. She was going to leap, but the opportunity had passed her by, and I think that's what she was referring to. Super sad, but I also think it speaks to her ability to move forward, which isn't for a while in this video, and the next section is actually about her. She is one brave soul. She will go through life or death experiences and then be fine by the time she has to go to bed. Not really, but it seems like it. She faces down the undead, and she doesn't even hesitate or out of fear. I also think that she values bravery, and that's why she went out of her way to overcome her flaws. She doesn't want things getting in the way of her doing what she needs to do, so it makes sense that fear wouldn't stop her. To brave people, fear doesn't really slow you down. From personal experience, that's a little double-edged. You can do amazing things, but if you're not careful, you can ignore obvious warnings. Fear isn't bad, and being brave isn't bad. It's being so fearful that you don't do the things that are good for you, and being so brave that you die over something stupid that's the problem. I think this speaks to a specific line that Kurumi says twice. Kind of reminds me of the foreshadowing from Of Mice and Men, because it's dog foreshadowing. When she says that Toromaru is too smart for his own good, that's definitely foreshadowing her own fate. Being too smart for your own good is an expression that means that a competent person can get themselves into trouble, either because they are able to avoid the things that keep them safe, or because they have the confidence in their own abilities that leads them to bad situations. Kurumi and Toromaru are in the same boat on that front. Toromaru learned how to get out of his collar, how to open doors, and because of that, there's nothing keeping him safe from the danger he could get himself into. Kurumi said something telling after the other thing. She said that he was smart enough to get out of trouble, and that's where her flaws lie. She is the second option, overconfident due to her abilities. Because she is so capable, she feels that she can let her guard down or do things she knows are stupid, because she knows that she can get out of it. In that sense, it's a curse that she is so capable, because it makes her struggle with being able to know when to look and when to leap. Whether or not she should look ahead to see if there's danger, or to go because it's safe, she has a hard time being able to tell, and that's what caused her to get infected. For both Toromaru and Kurumi, they started out with the best intentions to protect someone they care about, but they ended up both getting hurt as a result. That's what I found so interesting about Kurumi's perspective on Toromaru. For a moment, she had real clarity, but her flaws still caused her to end up reaffirming the same problem that they shared. I think this may be stemming from her desire not to accept the hard truth that she can't handle everything, but I think that's a stretch for an angle to find where she fits the theme. The more appropriate thematic diagnosis is that she made a mistake because she's flawed, like everyone else. We all make mistakes, we all have imperfections, and we all have the ability to grow from them. And no one embodies that fact more than Kurumi. Kurumi has some self-esteem issues, and it gets in the way of her goals and desires pretty often. I think she's afraid to be a burden on others, and that's why she normally tries to do things herself, even hard things, because she doesn't want to inconvenience anyone. Towards the beginning of the series, she never really took it that far, like how she told Ri about the fact that she was beyond their barrier and took out a zombie even if she didn't have to. This was her cry for help and to be watched more by the group. Kurumi had a sense of when things were going too far and did what she could to combat that with the support of those around her, like how she could tell Ri things and how she uses Yuki like a sign for when to act and when to think. I also think that her nervousness to tell her crush her feelings and her inability to do it without someone telling her to showed that she lacked that confidence. By the way, you can have confidence and still struggle with self-esteem. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Confidence is a great thing, and it helps a lot. But if you feel confident sometimes but insecure others, that's okay and normal. Just thought I'd mention that. Kurumi also has a habit of doing what others say or guide her to do. This isn't wrong automatically, but she does it a lot, even with serious things. She'll ask Yuki because Bree told her to. When Miki speaks up, that's the first time, if not the only time, in the whole series that Kurumi speaks against it. Kurumi learns to adapt to do what others tell her instead of thinking for herself, and I think that comes from insecurity about her decision-making. I think that she doesn't believe herself to be capable of making those kinds of important decisions, so she lets someone else that she trusts do it for her, like how she does with Miss Sakura, Ri, and Yuki. She still goes through a lot of struggles despite the fact that she isn't the freest thinker and can internally justify things that bother her, which is super healthy. Kurumi struggles because she doesn't believe that she should put the burden on others. Her role as exterminator also plays into that idea. She does all the hard things, the ugly things, she faces the most risk, and is the only character in their group with a weapon. She takes on the majority of the work and the entirety of the risk every chance she gets. That's not always a bad thing, but I think that a part of it is because she feels compelled to. She doesn't want to put it on anyone else, and she feels responsible for it. The best thing is if she shares the load and updates the others more, but her independence and her drive to do it herself so that she doesn't burden anyone is what caused her the most grief. She isn't invincible, and she can't do everything. In a situation like theirs, they need to comprehend that because making the slightest mistake can get them all killed. She is the strongest in the whole cast, but she also has the most pressure put on her. Because she's strong, because she's confident and competent, and because she doesn't want to put any of the weight on others, she carries it herself. This is way too much pressure, especially in the apocalypse. When she can't do it just once, she was screwed, and that's why she shouldn't be taking these unnecessary risks alone. As much as she doesn't want to burden the others, she ended up being the biggest burden of the group when it counted the most. Obviously, that was not her fault. She couldn't have known that would happen, at least timing-wise, but she was still the only reason they couldn't leave. Her not being able to move because they had to hold her down is why they couldn't all just escape together. Outside was clear, so they could have just snuck out a window or got in the car, but Kurumi couldn't go. Miki had also had to risk her life in order to get the cure for Kurumi. It was all masterfully written, perfectly dramatic timing for the best payoff. But Kurumi ended up doing the thing she was most afraid of by being the burden. If she had let them help her from the beginning, then they would have been more ready when that time came, like how Miki didn't even know how hard it was to use the shovel to take down zombies. Kurumi was the strongest, and she put all her strength into helping the group, so when the time came to help her, they couldn't. Except Yuki, because Yuki's awesome. The other reason why everything went poorly is because she wasn't likely to get infected if she wasn't alone. I think if any other character had been down there with her, then she would have made sure she had her priorities straight. She wouldn't have made such a careless decision if it wasn't just her. But because she was alone, no one could remind her of what's important. If she hadn't searched the area by herself, then even if they ran into Zamegane, then they might have been able to snap her out of it. It's all hypothetical, but Kurumi's chances were better if she didn't face that challenge by herself. She was also so afraid to put the burden that she carried on to others that she ended up being the biggest burden in this series. She carried so much of the weight herself that when the others needed to step up, they weren't strong enough to help her. Except Yuki. She thought that she could get out of any scrape, but that mindset caused her to get in so much trouble that the whole group had to step in to save her, even Toromaru. She went through all that, and she's still... Kurumi went through so much in this series, but she was still her awesome self by the end, and learned from her mistakes the best she could. She lost her crush and was set to live in an apocalypse in the same afternoon, and she was still the resident exterminator, but still, she was the most morally focused in the entire series. Kurumi wants to help others, and she doesn't want to do bad things. Even minor ones, like joining a club to get closer to a peer. She's also heroic, like when she wanted to go back for this stranger in the mall. She also worries the most about the zombies in their world. She struggles not to see them as human, and she struggles not to empathize with them, because she cares about others and she worries that the zombies are alive or still in there. In this series, it might even be true, which just makes it worse. They even go to places they once went. They don't like getting wet and all sorts of other things. Toromaru even proved that they don't always have to attack humans and can sometimes help if their will is strong enough. It's not foolproof, but it shows that he was still in there. He was a zombie for hours longer than Kurumi's crush. Not only is she the strongest character in the series, but she's also the most resilient. When she goes through bad things, they don't slow her down, and she even learns from them. Her crush turned into a zombie, and she had to wax on, wax off his head. She learned that life gives you opportunities, and that it's important to take them when the window is open, and not to take too long. What? That's the best lesson ever, and she learned it from that? She does that pretty often. She wants to learn from her mistakes so that she could be better, and she's always does her best. I try to do that too, and it's pretty cool to see a character with that mindset. She also wants to grow and get better from her experiences. She also sees a weakness as a challenge, like how she was hesitating because she couldn't help but see the zombies as human. She was trying to get over that fear by fighting it. Unfortunately, it didn't work. At least not before it bit her. Bit her. She comes back after every horrible thing she experiences and can even go back to smiling and laughing. She has the healthiest mindset in the cast when things begin, and her friends catch up by the end. She's the perfect example on how to get through things. Acknowledge that they happened, that your feelings are valid, then learn from it, and don't hold on to it. Let it pass. She is great at that. She is very good at being able to move forward and tries not to let things stop her. She went about it wrong when she wanted to not have to rely on others, but she still had her heart in the right place. If you're going through something and feel like it's impossible, or that there's nothing good to take away from what happened, then look at Kurumi, living proof that you can always get back up, and learn to be better from your experiences. Neither her nor anyone else is perfect, but if we believe we can always bounce back. Like a shovel. Thank you for watching.